We like to believe that film is permanent, a record burned into light immune to the erosion of time. Yet, what if permanence is an illusion? What if the movie you remember scene for scene no longer exists in the form you once saw in science fiction, where reality bends and memory fractures? Cinema seems to behave the same way. Footage shifts, dialogue fades, colors morph, scenes vanish without obituary. And suddenly, we are left wondering whether our recollection is wrong or whether the film has changed while we weren't looking. Some viewers insist the Blade Runner they knew whispered instead of explained. Others reject the green-soaked version of The Matrix that dominates today. Fans of Predator speak of sweat pores and jungle grime washed clean by digital polish, leaving behind an image that feels too smooth to be honest. And then there are the story's LaserDisc copies with different edits, VHS tapes, containing moments modern masters refuse to acknowledge. It doesn't feel like nostalgia. It feels like evidence. Studios call these differences improvements, restoration, enhancement, but replacing isn't always preserving. When trades firearms for radios, or when Star Wars reassigns a trigger pull to alter a hero's nature, something deeper shifts. Heritage becomes revision. History becomes editable. The version we remember collides with the one the archive permits. Maybe we misremember, or maybe the past has been quietly rewritten. Tonight, we step into the reels that slipped movies whose identities changed after release, reshaped in silence. Not remade, not rebooted, altered. So, if the movie in your mind doesn't match the one on your screen, which one is real? And if cinema can be rewritten, what else can? 1 Solaris 1972. Some grew up with Solaris as a slow dream, long takes like heartbeat, thoughts stretched thin across space. Others saw a truncated form almost half an hour shorter where silence was trimmed and reflection thinned. Tarkovsky meant slowness to weigh like gravity, memory sinking over time. One cut presses you into your seat like ocean pressure. The other lets you surface too soon. Multiple editions circulate like drifting fragments. Archivists debate lost minutes. Cinephiles trade versions like artifacts. No one can say with certainty which cut captures pure intent, only that each feels true in different ways. A film about memory becomes memory-shaped. Perhaps the real Solaris is not the longest or shortest, but the one your mind chooses to keep. 2 Brazil 1985. Two endings stand opposite like sunrise and eclipse. In one, fantasy survives. In the other, fantasy breaks. The studio cut softens the world, letting love conquer and fear fade. Gilliam's cut strips away comfort, leaving hope as hallucination just before collapse. Both tell the same story, but one lets you wake safely and one traps you inside the machine. The fight behind these edits became legend, secret screenings. Reviews like weapons, creative defiance, waged in boardrooms and projection booths. Today, streaming services may show either ending with no warning. Someone watches Brazil and finds redemption. Someone else watches and finds despair. Same film, different outcome. If a story about oppression can be edited to encourage hope rather than revolt, what happens to the warning? Is it preserved or diluted until audiences forget it ever hurt? Sometimes the most dangerous change is the one that feels gentle. 3 Blade Runner 1982. Few films embody revision like Blade Runner. Across decades, it has lived many lives, theatrical international directors final, each one changing how the story breathes. Some first encountered a version with narration noir and exhaustive explaining what silence once implied. Others met the film without that voice left to wander neon rain with only questions for light. And then there is the cut with the unicorn a dream, so small it rewrites everything. Color shifts across editions like weather. Early releases feel industrial metal stained and weary. Later, masters lean colder, greener like circuitry awakening under skin. Pace stretches or tightens depending on which print runs. A detective story can feel meditative or urgent with nothing but time altered. No version lies, but each reveals a different philosophy. Did Deckard escape or remain trapped? Did we witness a man or a machine? The film answers differently depending on which edition frames your memory. A narrative about artificial identity becomes a film with multiple identities. Perhaps Blade Runner never existed as one thing, perhaps it was always a prism. For Star Wars, A New Hope, 1977. No change sparked more outrage than a single blaster shot, not because of lasers, but because of identity. Han Solo once shot on instinct, preemptive, and unflinching. Later edits rewrite that moment, making Greedo fire first or near simultaneous. One frame shifts morality. Rogue becomes hero. Edge becomes refinement. The galaxy is the same, yet the character born from it is not. Remasters introduced creatures, cleaned frames, altered timing, reshaped tattooing into a brighter desert. Nostalgia remembers grit, modern editions show gloss. Hunting the original theatrical cut requires effort bordering on rebellion. Unofficial preservations, archived reels fan restorations, treated like sacred text. If history can be adjusted in high definition, what is canon, the version we grew with, or the version curated for us later? Han's trigger finger is a fault line, small enough to overlook, strong enough to split memory itself. 5e, T. The extraterrestrial 1982. The most famous alteration in T is tiny, almost laughably small guns swapped for walkie-talkies. But that substitution changes more than props. It shifts tone. In the original, Federal agents were dangerous silhouettes with power. In the altered version, authority becomes softer, less lethal. Wonder replaces fear. Protection replaces pursuit. This was later reversed, but both edits remain accessible, shaping memory depending on which one someone saw first. Kids from the 80s recall racing hearts, not friendly radios. Younger audiences remember gentler stakes, suburban adventure, unthreatened by real harm. Two generations, two truths. Visual tweaks layered onto the re-released digital footprints, clean spaceship glows, smoother facial animation. Magic becomes smoother but less tactile. Childhood that once felt risky now feels guided, like imagination padded against the sharp corners of reality. A. T. Teaches empathy, but one version teaches it through danger, the other through safety. Which lesson survives depends on which edit the world continues to share. A movie about connection is now divided by it. 6. The Terminator 1984. There are viewers who swear the Terminator once felt rougher, less polished, as if the future war had stained the film itself. Early VHS copies showed heavier grain, harsher metallic gunfire breaths that seemed uncomfortably real. Restoration improved clarity, but clarity can erase texture. In high definition, the future no longer feels rusted, it feels manufactured. Violence is sharper, but somehow cleaner. The world is still brutal, but less raw. Small differences spark heated memory. Some remember the tech noir shootout running seconds longer, or the factory showdown carrying extra frames of sparks and terror. Whether these details ever existed is debated, but belief persists like a glitch in collective recall. Remasters adjusted timing, smoothed sound, compressed silence. Story remains identical, yet sensation is subtly rewritten. Preservation teams call this improvement. Fans call it revision. The old film breathed through imperfections, the new film exhales sterilized air. Nostalgia might exaggerate, but nostalgia rarely invents identical ghosts across thousands of minds. If the past feels grittier than the present version allows what changed the film or the viewer, maybe both. 7 Aliens, 1986. Some remember Aliens as sprint, relentless, breathless, every scene burning forward like pulse in the throat. Others recall a deeper cut, swollen with character details, Ripley's daughter, the colony before collapse, automated guns tearing corridors into meat. These additions, restored in the special edition, change the emotional spine. Survival becomes motherhood. Horror becomes mourning. Perspective expands like a wound that finally exposes what caused the scar. Neither version lies, but each tells different truth. The theatrical cut is war. The extended cut is aftermath. One screams. The other grieves. Fans argue pacing, but pacing hides something more delicate: narrative weight. Remove backstory and Ripley fights for strangers. Restore it, and she fights like a mother desperate not to fail again. Disc streams and imports circulate like parallel timelines. Some platforms default to extended. Others preserve theatrical without context. A first-time viewer might never know another version existed. And so memory becomes generational, not what happened, but what was available. When a film can change its emotional core with restored minutes, what is canon, momentum, or motive? If survival is the story, theatrical wins. If heart is the story, extended bleeds deeper. Which one did you survive? 8. The Abyss, 1989. The Abyss exists like a tide receding or rising, depending on the version you watch. The theatrical cut feels like pressure, human conflict tightening in steel corridors, the ocean above them indifferent. The special edition widens the world, adds emotional scaffolding, restores scenes that shift the film from survival thriller into plea for compassion. 2 cuts. 2 temperatures. One cold, one forgiving. The theatrical version moves quickly, water rising like panic. The extended version breathes more, lingers on human wounds, lets alien intelligence feel less threat and more mirror. Neither change alters plot, yet both alter interpretation. Contact with the unknown becomes warning or invitation. Collectors debate which is definitive. LaserDisc advocates defend the longer cut as truer to Cameron's vision. Purists praise the original momentum, clean, relentless. Streaming platforms alternate availability, shaping new generations by whichever edit they encounter first. A movie about understanding an alien mind is now shaped by edits that test our own. Is longer more truthful or simply more comfortable? Is shorter sharper or incomplete? The ocean in the abyss does not change, only the way we see it. Which version did you drown in? 9 Event Horizon, 1997. Whispers of a longer, more horrifying event horizon have trailed the film for decades. Rumors of extended visions of madness screams carved like scripture into the ship's walls. The version most viewers know shows only a glimpse of hell-fractured cuts of torture bodies suspended in impossible shapes, a nightmare compressed into seconds. But many insist earlier work prints contain minutes of this terror, later removed and supposedly lost. Paramount claimed the footage deteriorated beyond recovery. Fans hear lost and imagine buried. Fragments surfaced, briefly degraded clips on VHS production stills that feel like crime scene photos. Each scrap fuels belief in a vanished timeline where the ship showed more than we were meant to see. Did the studio soften the brutality, or did memory exaggerate the darkness? That question lives online like essence repeated by people certain they saw more. Some describe shots, modern editions, omit a figure with torn eyes, a corridor dripping like organic machinery. No authoritative version confirms it, but stories are too consistent to ignore. Either thousands imagined the same hallucination, or something was cut and the absence became myth. A film about a void that corrupts memory is now haunted by memory itself. Perhaps the original was more explicit. Perhaps the restraint we see today came later, a safety layer added long after the scream. If a movie built on madness can lose pieces to time, what else can vanish unnoticed? Maybe hell isn't missing. Maybe it's still out there on a tape someone is afraid to play. 10 Close Encounters of the Third Kind, 1977. 3 versions exist, 3 emotional outcomes. The 1977 theatrical release cultivates wonder through distant silence waiting unanswered light. The 1980 special edition opens the ship revealing what was once obscured. Mystery becomes revelation. Later, the director's cut retracts that interior sequence and reshapes pacing, creating a compromise between awe and austerity. None of these cuts erase the story, but each adjusts meaning. First Contact feels miraculous or terrifying, depending on which world you enter. Ask 2 viewers what the film is about, and answers diverge. For some, it's spiritual, unveiling humanity, touching the unknown. For others, it's unsettling, ambiguity, a presence we cannot decode. The difference lives not in memory, but in version. Streaming services rotate edits with little warning, teaching one philosophy to one audience and another to the next. Collectors track runtimes like constellation maps. Archivists debate which reflects Spielberg's true intent. Even the director shifted his own stance over time, revisiting choices he once defended, retracting ones he once restored. If authorship evolves, is the film fixed or ongoing? Close Encounters was always about communication beyond language. Now the movie communicates through variation itself, each edit speaking differently, each cut offering alternate sky. Which encounter did you experience? Revelation, hesitation, or a blend of both? 11 THX 1138-1971. The earliest THX 1138 felt claustrophobic, sterile corridors, silence like anesthesia, a future built from white walls and suppressed identity. Later releases expanded the environment with CGI architecture, digital crowds, new visual scope. Confinement became spectacle. A dystopia once suffocating became wide. The film didn't change story, but it changed sensation, and sensation is story's pulse. Fans debate whether the enhancement honors or overrides intent. In the original emptiness, was theme humanity stripped, space oppressive? The updated cut fills that void, turning prison into panorama. Clean digital lines sweep away the raw industrial texture that defined early Lucas. Characters once engulfed by space now stand within designed scale. Fear becomes awe. Because the revised cut dominates commercial access, new generations may never feel the original pressure the way sound echoed like footsteps in a tomb. Physical collectors trade tapes like fugitives, trafficking evidence of a version the present marginalizes. Preservation becomes rebellion. Memory becomes contraband. A society within the film suppresses individuality, refines behavior, controls perception. The updated edition mirrors that transformation, smoothing imperfection, presenting a future manufactured rather than endured. Fiction reflects edit. Edit reflects fiction. If a dystopia becomes visually appealing, does its warning weaken if progress can rewrite discomfort, what remains of message? The film taught us identity can be altered. History proved the film was not immune. 12 Solaris, 1972. Some remember Solaris as a slow tidal pull, a film that drifts like consciousness refusing to hurry. Others recall a leaner experience nearly half an hour shorter, as though the ocean had receded. Multiple run times circulated in different regions, trimming silence, trimming grief, trimming reflection. Tarkovsky intended slowness to weigh on the spirit, to press thought into the viewer's chest like gravity. In shorter versions, that weight is reduced, replaced with forward motion. The film is the same, yet feels undeniably different, less ache, more progress. Archivists comb through surviving prints, searching for missing minutes, small scenes, corridor walks, breaths between words. A gesture held too long for mainstream pacing. A shot of water that lingers like sorrow. Were these moments excess or essence? Digital restorations attempt to unify, but each edition reflects a different philosophy, contemplation, or compression. Viewers argue not about content, but rhythm, how the story settles into the mind. A movie about memory now depends on memory to reconstruct itself. Some swear they saw a longer dream. Others insist no such footage existed. Preservation becomes testimony. Debate becomes archaeology. The film itself asks whether thoughts shape reality, yet here reality shapes the film, bending around availability, licensing, restoration choices. If Solaris exists in multiple forms, none definitive, then perhaps uncertainty is the truest version. A film about ghosts of memory becomes a ghost of itself, shifting shape across decades. Which Solaris did you live in, the one that breathes slowly or the one that wakes too soon? 13 Brazil, 1985. Two endings. Two realities. One film. Brazil exists as a split timeline, one where rebellion fails under oppressive machinery, and one where fantasy triumphs, love survives, and cruelty dissolves into dream. The studio preferred hope. Gilliam preferred truth. And so the film fractured. Viewers who saw Gilliam's cut remember a final scene that freezes the lungs, not victory, but escape into delusion. The studio cut rewires that descent into something tender, as if sorrow could be replaced with comfort by executive choice. The shift is not cosmetic, it rewrites purpose. One ending warns us. The other forgives us. The war over these versions became cinematic folklore, backdoor screenings, press battles, critics smuggling influence like contraband. Gilliam fought to restore bleak authenticity while Universal defended the brighter version like a shield. Today, both live on physical media and streaming rotations, appearing unpredictably like different realities playing through the same screen. Some watch Brazil and feel crushed. Others watch and feel saved. Both reactions are correct depending on which copy survives in memory. If a film can teach opposite lessons based solely on which edition reached you, then cinema isn't fixed. It's fluid, editable. Moral outcomes can be reassigned like dialogue. So which Brazil is true, the one where hope wins, or the one that tells us hope was the dream all along? 14 Predator, 1987. People who saw Predator in theaters describe it not just as a movie, but as a temperature, humid, grimy, alive. Grain crawled like insects. Sweat shined unevenly across skin. The jungle felt like it could swallow the audience whole. Then came the remaster, sanding texture away until faces looked waxed jungle foliage, smoothed into flat gradients and blood-loss density. The new clarity is sharp, but clarity without imperfection feels wrong, almost synthetic. Screenshots comparing cuts look like two different films, one feral, one moisturized. Some celebrate the upgrade, others mourn the erosion of danger. High-definition restoration made costumes visible, made makeup visible, made filmmaking visible, and visibility kills myth. The Predator was terrifying when it hid between grain and shadow. Less so when the mask becomes crisp, when pores vanish, when everything gleams like clean plastic. Collectors keep old discs like relics, believing they hold the true jungle, the dirty one, the human one. Younger audiences only know the polished cut, and so a new truth forms. The film hasn't been rewritten on paper, but emotionally, tonally, atmospherically, it is not the same creature it once was. Some changes alter details. This change altered feeling. Maybe we didn't lose footage. Maybe we lost sweat. And sweat is what makes survival real. If a remaster can smooth fear into gloss, what else will future restorations soften? 15. The Matrix 1999. Some people remember The Matrix before the digital future swallowed it, a world that looked almost ordinary. The simulation only hinted through tone rather than stained green across every frame. In modern releases, the hue is unmistakable, loud, artificial, draining ambiguity from the narrative. What was once a subtle question, is this real, becomes an obvious statement. It never was. The shift isn't a rewrite of story, but a rewrite of perception. The world no longer hides the truth, it glows with it. Older viewers insist the theatrical release was balanced, real-world, neutral Matrix, slightly tinted. A barely noticeable visual code. But Blu-ray masters deepen the green so aggressively that the film seems like memory recolored by future reinterpretation. Streets shine like circuitry, apartment walls hum with digital tone, and even human skin carries simulation like a watermark. Did the film evolve, or did preservation overwrite nuance? Some argue it's an improvement, alignment with sequels, refinement of theme. Others believe something crucial was erased, doubt, subtlety, the slow dread of a truth that whispered instead of shouted. Screenshots float across forums like evidence submitted to court. VHS captures show one thing, streaming shows another. Each source claims authenticity, but not the same truth. If a film about manipulated reality can be visually rewritten decades later, then what is memory worth? Is nostalgia unreliable, or did our version of The Matrix slip into a different digital timeline altogether? Maybe the movie never changed, only the system hosting it. Or maybe we are witnessing exactly what the story warned us about: reality updated without permission. If film can be patched like software, then which Matrix is real, the one we saw or the one we're allowed to see? BONUSFACT Dark City 1998. Two ways into the story exist, one through guidance, one through confusion. In the theatrical release of Dark City, a voice speaks before the world even begins, explaining the strangers, the shifting architecture, the stolen memories. It tells you where you are, what is happening, and why it matters. But the director's cut removes the narration completely, leaving viewers disoriented from the first frame, exactly as the characters are. One film illuminates the maze. The other locks you inside it. The difference is only seconds, yet the experience changes entirely. With narration, the puzzle arrives pre-solved. Tension becomes anticipation rather than inquiry. Without narration, mystery becomes oxygen. You breathe it whether you want to or not. Viewers describe the director's cut as more honest, more unsettling, more like awakening without identity. Others argue the exposition strengthens structure like a lighthouse guiding the ship instead of letting it drift blind. Memory complicates this further. Many are unsure which version they saw first. Did the voice greet them, or did silence? Did they learn truth or uncover it? The film explores manufactured memory and now suffers from it. Each format release, each broadcast, each stream rotates possibility. Some audiences watch certainty. Others watch doubt. No universal truth remains, only recollection. A story about stolen identity now has two of its own, which is the real Dark City, the version that explains, or the version that withholds, the one that hands you the key, or the one that forces you to feel trapped inside shifting walls. Maybe the movie was always meant to exist in more than one reality, and maybe the most accurate version is whichever one you can't fully remember. Films fade not because time erases them, but because time rewrites them. What survives isn't always what existed, only what remains accessible. Maybe that's preservation. Maybe that's revision. Maybe that's both. Now I want to hear from you. Which version of these films do you remember, the one available today or the one you're certain used to exist? And if two memories of a movie conflict, does that make one false or prove that cinema itself has splintered into alternate histories? Tell me in the comments which film changed the most and which version you believe was real.